Hello and welcome. You're watching NDTV 24/7. I'm Shanakshi Chakravarti. The top story that we've been tracking through the day, the three service chiefs are set to meet the Prime Minister on Tuesday to brief him on the Agnipath recruitment scheme, which has seen nationwide protests, mostly by the youth across the country. Several opposition parties, including the Congress, have dubbed this Agnipath scheme as the latest blunder of the government, part of a series that includes demonetization and the farm laws. The government has ruled out a rollback. In fact, even as the protests continued over the centre's Agnipath short-term recruitment plan for the armed forces, the army on Monday issued a notification for the induction of soldiers under the scheme. The online registration will begin from July. Take a look. In fact, we also have updates of all the updates from how these protests have really impacted life on a normal day-to-day basis for the Aam Aadmi. Over 600 trains were cancelled on Monday as part of the Bharat Bandh call against the Agnipath military recruitment scheme. The protesters are demanding a rollback of the scheme while the government is standing on its ground. Congress leaders have sat on a satyagraha at Jantar Mantar in the national capital on Monday to express solidarity with the armed forces and the aspirants protesting against the Agnipath scheme. Some youth Congress workers also were detained after they blocked a train at the Shivaji Bridge railway station near Delhi's Connaught Place. Parts of the national capital also witnessed traffic jams as the police tightened security across the city and its bordering areas. In fact, the corporate world and industry leaders like Mahindra Group Chairman Anand Mahindra, RPG Enterprises Chairman Harsh Goenka and Biocon Limited Chairperson Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw and Apollo Hospitals Group Joint Managing Director Sangeeta Reddy have come out in support of this scheme. On Monday evening, Tata Sons Chairman N. Chandrasekaran also joined the list backing the centre's Agnipath scheme, saying apart from the opportunity for the youth to serve the defence forces, it will also make available a very disciplined and trained workforce for the industry, including the Tata Group. The Prime Minister, without directly mentioning the scheme or the protests, spoke in Bengaluru as he's over there attending a few events. He did speak up in support of the Agnipath scheme.
कई फैसले, कई रिफॉर्म तात्कालिक रूप से अप्रिय लग सकते हैं, लेकिन समय के साथ उन रिफॉर्म का लाभ आज देश अनुभव करता है. रिफॉर्म का रास्ता ही हमें नए लक्ष्यों, नए संकल्पों की तरफ ले जाता है.
A number of opposition and political parties and a significant number of military experts have also slammed the short-term recruitment scheme, saying that it will adversely impact the functioning of the armed forces. Let's listen in to those.
इसका डिस्कशन नहीं हुआ, ये डिफेंस कंसल्टेटिव कमेटी में भी नहीं आया, स्टैंडिंग कमेटी में भी नहीं आया, तो आप इसको अच्छी तरह से देखे नहीं और इसका बहुत बड़ा नुकसान हमारे युवाओं को हो रहा है. सदन में लाए, हाँ सदन में, कई सदन में भी नहीं लाए, तो ये हमारी चीजें उनके सामने रखे.
Over 600 trains have been cancelled in Monday in view of the Bharat Bandh that was called in parts of the country over the centre's Agnipath scheme, leaving many stranded. Take a look.
Thousands of passengers stranded at railway stations across Bihar, as over 600 trains were either suspended or delayed in the state, a fallout of the protests against the Agnipath scheme. In Delhi, there were massive traffic jams on routes like the Delhi-Gurgaon Expressway, where police was checking vehicles entering Delhi for any protesters.
एक बोला कि हमारे को कुछ पता नहीं है, मैं बोला कि मेरे को लिख कर थोड़ा दीजिए, ये भी बोला कि मैं लिख कर कुछ नहीं दूंगा, तो ट्रेन कैंसिल है.
वैगना के एडमिशन के लिए कोटा जाना था, 22 तक लास्ट डेट है इसका एडमिशन का. कल तक बता रहा था कि ट्रेन कैंसिल नहीं है, आज पता चला कि ट्रेन कैंसिल है, जिस कारण से आज लौटने का भी कोई ट्रेन नहीं है.
The internet was shut down in as many as 20 districts of Bihar, and the state government deployed paramilitary forces at 11 party offices of BJP, which are considered vulnerable. On 16th June, protesters had attacked MLAs and party offices of the BJP. This has caused a massive rift in the ruling BJP-JDU alliance, with the BJP accusing Chief Minister Nitish Kumar's government of going soft on protesters. With the centre making it clear it will not roll back the Agnipath scheme, many young men in Bihar say they are deeply disappointed.
इसको क्या कह सकते हैं, तानाशाही की सरकार कह सकते हैं, मजबूरन इसको इम्प्लीमेंट किया जा रहा है।
सर हमें ये नहीं समझ आ रहा है कि सर 3 साल हम लोग यहाँ मेहनत करके सेना में भर्ती हो रहे हैं मात्र 4 साल ड्यूटी करने के लिए।
Students also came out on streets in many districts of Haryana to protest against the Agnipath scheme. In Jhajjar, some students were detained and later released. Farm union leaders also extended their support to this agitation and allowed vehicles to pass without paying the toll plaza for 3 hours. Long queues of slowly moving vehicles were also witnessed at Delhi-Noida Flyway, Meerut Expressway, Anand Vihar, Sarai Kale Khan and Pragati Maidan.
The protest against the Agnipath scheme reminds us of the initial days when the farm laws were passed by the Government of India, and when the agitation started, the Government of India had absolutely denied that the farm laws will ever be rolled back. But then after a year-long protest by the farmer groups, the government had to take a U-turn and roll back the farm laws. And with the protests continuing against the Agnipath recruitment policy in different parts of the country, what remains to be seen is that whether this will culminate into a similar kind of agitation across the country. With camera person Sushil Rathi, Manish Kumar in Patna and Mohammad Ghazali in Chandigarh Amakshadongre for NDTV.
Alright, shifting focus to a big story from Maharashtra with cross-voting. BJP wins its 5th seat in the Maharashtra Council polls. The Shiv Sena, NCP win 2 seats each for their parties. Let's go straight across to NDTV's Saurabh Gupta, who is on the ground tracking that story very closely for us. Saurabh, so
definitely we are very happy. Our great leader देवेंद्र फडणवीस जी जिन्होंने ये सारी रणनीति बनाई, उस देवेंद्र फडणवीस जी का मैं मन से आभार मानता हूं। और ये पूरे महाविकास आघाड़ी का विजय पराभव है। भारतीय जनता पार्टी का जो विजय हुआ उसके सामने शिवसेना के 12 मत जो कम हुए, ये हमारे लिए बहुत बड़ी बात है। जिस तरीके से संजय राउत जी ने कल बताया था कि हम देवेंद्र फडणवीस हमारे पैर के नीचे आकर बैठेंगे, आज महाविकास आघाड़ी को उनके पैर के तरह रोंगला कर हमने मारा है और उसका हमें अभिमान है।
सर ये डिफेक्टर्स आए कैसे बीजेपी में, ये बताइए।
मुख्यमंत्री मिलते नहीं है, महाविकास आघाड़ी काम करता नहीं है, महाविकास आघाड़ी के पास लोग जाते हैं तो किसी के पास वक्त नहीं है, महाविकास आघाड़ी भ्रष्टाचार में मग्न है। ऐसे समय में जो आमदार सच में काम करना चाहते हैं, वो आमदार देवेंद्र जी के 5 साल के पिछले 5 साल के कामों से वो खुश थे और उसके कारण आज वो हमारे साथ।
उनका आरोप है कि डरा धमका के बीजेपी सपोर्ट लेते हैं।
सरकार उनकी, पुलिस उनकी, सब कुछ उनका, हम कैसे डराएंगे?
सेंट्रल एजेंसी।
अगर हम ऐसे डरा सकते थे तो हम बाहुबली बनते थे। कुछ भी बोलते हैं, कल संजय राउत कुछ बकेगा, उसका जवाब कल सुबह।
But anyways, congratulations, sir. You won today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Speaking to us, so that's Prasad Lad, the BJP's 5th candidate who's managed to win. Now, of course, the government's, the opposition parties claim that the BJP obviously, makes these threats, uses central agencies, and did put that question to him as well. But he's won today. And the BJP has managed to get defectors on its side, which is a worry for the government in Maharashtra, because at the end of the day, cross-voting has happened. It's happened from the government side. And that is something that the government constituents, the NCP, the Shiv Sena, the Congress will be looking at very closely, because this means that the BJP, which has been targeting the MVA government, will be more emboldened to target it now, given the fact that they managed to pull off not just a Rajya Sabha seat, victory and extra, but also an extra seat. Mr. Prasad Lad, who you see was pitted against the Congress's second candidate, he's managed to win, so he's a winner. And obviously this is something that the government will look at very closely, given that the BJP has managed to once again win with defectors, and that's something, of course, that's a strategy that other parties haven't been able to emulate.
Yeah, in fact, Saurabh, this is a big jolt for the Mahavikas Aghadi. That is crucial. And there seems to be cross-voting by the Congress MLAs, like you were mentioning, but a big jolt for the Mahavikas Aghadi.
it's not just Congress MLAs, it has to be others as well, because the math doesn't quite add up. If you look at it, it has to be from the other constituents of the MVA as well. And that is something that is worrying, because the BJP has managed to get cross-voting done, and it has managed to get votes from the government side and then get Mr. Prasad Lad elected. And that was a tough call. It was a tough ask to get that many number of defectors. But it seems they've managed that. How they've managed that? Well, there are two takes on it. One is, of course, that the BJP says, well, people are unhappy with the government. The other take is that the Shiv Sena, the NCP say the BJP is using central agencies, using threats, using all of that to get MLAs on its side. And that is, of course, a matter of debate. And that, of course, is being playing out in politics as we see. But and there have been allegations that the central agencies have been focused on targeting leaders of the Sena, the NCP, and not really anyone else, because that, of course, seems to be the target in Maharashtra. But beyond that, the BJP has managed to get defectors and pull off quite a win. That's a worry for the government.
Well, absolutely. Thanks, Saurabh, for those live updates, and clearly a big jolt for the Maha Vikas Aghadi and BJP's efforts to pull back defectors. We will continue to track the details of that story. But former West Bengal Governor Gopal Krishna Gandhi on Monday turned down the opposition party's request to contest the upcoming presidential election. The 77-year-old is the third political person after Nationalist Congress Party Chief Sharad Pawar and former Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Farooq Abdullah to have withdrawn their names as probable opposition nominees for the July elections. Sanket with all the details.
So hectic parleys are now going to take place as far as the race to Raisina is concerned, and there are largely two camps here. One is, of course, the government led by the BJP, and the other is the opposition, and you can see the various movements taking place in the opposition camp. Let's first talk about the government, that is the Bharatiya Janata Party. So we know that JP Nadda, he held a meeting with a 14-member management team on Sunday. Now BJP announced the President Pol's crack team. They have a crack team of 14 people. This is going to be led by Union Minister Gajendra Singh Shekhawat, Union Minister Arjun Ram Meghwal, G. Kishan Reddy, Ashwini Vaishnav, all were part of the team, and they had a meeting at Mr. Shekhawat's residence on Sunday. BJP General Secretary Vinod Tawde, CT Ravi, all of them attended. Now, if you also recall, Rajnath Singh and JP Nadda have been authorized by the party to speak to NDA and UPA allies on likely names, and this is interesting because sources tell us that Nadda and Singh have reached out to many non-UPA, non-NDA partners. They have about 49% of the electoral college. To have your own candidate inside the Rashtrapati Bhavan, you need to cross 50%. They hope that the like-minded parties will support them and they will very easily cross the 50% mark. They have also, as a part of this exercise of reaching out to UPA as well as NDA constituents, reached out to Mamta Banerjee, Sharad Pawar, Mallikarjun Kharge, Akhilesh Yadav, Mayawati and Shibu Soren. What happened in those talks, we do not know, but an attempt has been made so that there is a consensus candidate. But let's now find out what is happening in the opposition camp, because that's where a lot of movement is taking place. Now there is a big opposition meeting which is expected tomorrow on the 21st of June. Mamta Banerjee is unlikely to attend this meeting and Abhishek Banerjee is going to attend in her place. Last meeting, if you recall, was held on the 15th of June in New Delhi. The TRS had not supported the opposition meet back then. It's interesting what their position is going to be now. MIM is going to send a representative. 3 candidates so far have backed out from the race so far, and this is a big blow to the opposition. Sharad Pawar, Farooq Abdullah and now Gopal Krishna Gandhi have all said no. The opposition is yet to finalize their presidential as well as vice presidential candidate, and the candidates for the government or the BJP also remain a mystery. Lots of movement, the names not quite out yet.
And even as Congress leader Rahul Gandhi was being questioned for a 4th day by the Enforcement Directorate on Monday, he has been summoned for Tuesday as well. That will be his 5th round of questioning. The Wayanad MP has been questioned for 40 hours in 4 days so far in a case of alleged money laundering case linked to the National Herald newspaper. A major breakthrough in the sensational case of killing of Punjabi pop singer Sidhu Moosewala. Two of the main shooters have been arrested and a large number of arms and explosives recovered. The shooters have been identified by the Delhi police, who have on record said that the case is now solved. Let's listen in.
19 तारीख को सुबह के टाइम हमारी जो स्पेशल सेल की टीम्स थी, इन्होंने इनको अरेस्ट किया है। ये है खारी मिट्टी रोड, विलेज बारोई, मुंद्रा पोर्ट के पास। तो इन्होंने वहाँ पे एक रेंटेड मकान किसी लोकल प्रॉपर्टी डीलर के थ्रू ले रखा था, क्योंकि जब इन्हें देखा कि ऑलरेडी कुछ फोटोज आपको याद होंगी कि सर्कुलेट हुई थी, जो कि एक इंटरनल हमारा नोट था, उसमें हमने एक शुरू में कुछ वर्किंग करी थी जिसमें हमने कुछ सस्पेक्ट्स को अंकित किया था किसी ग्राउंड पे। लेकिन ऑब्वियसली सस्पेक्ट्स में से दैट वाज द स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट। तो 3 उसमें से जो हमारा वो था कि 3 शूटर जो थे वो वही निकले, रूपा, मन्नू और प्रियव्रत फौजी।
And in a shocking story from Maharashtra's Sangli district, 9 members of a family have died by suicide. The family members were found dead in their house. The police have suspected that the 9 family members died by suicide by consuming poison and also suspect that they were in heavy debt. Among the 9, one is a 15-year-old minor girl. The police is investigating the matter. The flood situation in Assam remains unchanged on Monday as the situation continues to look grim. The state has recorded over 100% more rains than normal, which is not unusual in Assam, especially during the monsoon season, but it is facing one of the biggest floods in a decade. Over 47 lakh have been affected across 30 districts. 11 people have died in the last 24 hours. And in Kanpur Nagaon district, over 100 villages have been inundated. 2 policemen, unfortunately, have died in those rescue operations. My colleague Ratnadeep Chaudhary has been bringing us all the ground reports from there. Let's take a look.
Ravina Bordolo is cooking the only meal of the day that her family of 6 will have as they huddle together at this shelter. A raised platform which is now home for them since the past 5 days, since the floods ravaged their village. 50 other flood affected people like them are taking shelter here on this open stage, which was also their shelter a month back in the first wave of floods. Ravina fears her hut must have been washed away by now. She has also lost 2 bighas of standing rice crop.
ঘৰত মানে তেতিয়া ঘৰলৈ গলে আৰু বহুত দুখৰ কথা হয়, চকুৰ পানী ওলায়। এতিয়া ঘৰত গৈও তো কি কৰিম নো, এনেকৈ থাকিব লাগিব, হয়তো পানী নুশুকালৈকে এনেকৈ থাকিবলগীয়া হ'ব চাগে।
ইয়াতে খানা চানা কেনেকৈ ব্যৱস্থা কৰিম?
এইটো আৰু ব্যৱস্থা আৰু যেনে তেনে খাইছোঁ আৰু ঘৰৰ পৰা যিকেইটা আনিছিলোঁ মুঠি চাউল মুঠি সেইকে বনাই কৈ যেনে তেনে খাই আছোঁ আৰু ল'ৰা ছোৱালীৰ লগত আৰু।
Kanpur in Nagaon district has faced 2 massive floods in just 1 month. People's home had not even dried up completely before the second round of floodwaters gushed in, spreading destruction in their wake.
আমি একো সহায় পোৱা নাই। আজি 5 দিনে হল পানী যেতিয়া সোমাইছে, বেছি হৈ আহিছে, মানে ঘৰৰ ভিতৰত পানীটো সোমাইছে। যোৱাবাৰ বানপানীটো ইয়ালৈকে আহিছিল, ইয়াতে আছিল। 10 দিন মান ইয়াতে থাকিলো, তাৰ পাছত ঘৰ ওলাইছে, যেতিয়া ঘৰলৈ গুচি গলো, ঘৰ গৈ পাইছো ঘৰ ভাঙি বেৰছে ভাঙি চিঙি লৈ গুচি গৈছে, তেনেকৈ আছো আৰু।
The Kopli River, which flows besides Kanpur, is flowing above highest flood levels, and you can see here everything is inundated. The houses are inundated. Most of the people from the villages around Kanpur have been evacuated and taken to safer places. These people were the last people, and now they have taken this dangerous ride on a country boat to reach a safer place. Incessant rains for a week, the sudden release of huge volume of water from a dam upstream of Kopli River triggered a breach in the embankment and high floods. Locals say it's the biggest since 2004.
এতিয়া যে হৈছে আগৰ পৰা ডাঙৰ হ'ল, 1 ফুট মান বেছি হ'ল। আগৰ পানী এতিয়া ঘৰ ভালকৈ শুকাও নাই। আকৌ আমি ৰাস্তাত আহিলোঁ, এই 2004ত হৈছিলে। আপোনাৰ এই জলকীয়া খেতি আছিলে 8 বিঘা, বেঙেনা খেতি 8 বিঘা।
In Kanpur alone, over 221,000 people have been affected. 107 villages are inundated, village roads and bridges badly damaged, leaving vast areas completely cut off. now accessible only by boat. Each day a fight for survival. 2 police personnel, including the officer in charge of Kanpur police station, were washed away in the high floods. Their dead bodies recovered on Monday. Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sharma held an urgent review of the situation to chalk out faster rescue and relief operations. Life has become very uncertain for these helpless people. They really don't know when they will be able to get back to their homes. Even staying here is full of challenges. Their rations are fast running out and government help is yet to arrive. From Kanpur, with camera person Sanjay Chakravarti, Ratndeep Chaudhary for NDTV.
And shifting focus to the record heat wave across Europe, temperatures in parts of Western Europe have shattered all-time records on Sunday as the June heat wave has hit its peak, with France and Spain recording over 40 degrees Celsius over the weekend. Take a look.
Temperatures in parts of Western Europe shattered all-time records on Sunday as the June heat wave hit its peak, with France and Spain recording over 40 degrees Celsius over the weekend. It is important to note that Europe typically sees these weather conditions only as late as July or August, and this heat wave is early and unusually intense, and in line with the World Meteorological Organization's warning that heat waves will begin earlier in the year, with higher frequency and severity thanks to human-caused climate change. For Spain, it was the earliest heat wave in over 40 years, whereas in France, it was the earliest in all time. Records were broken in Biarritz, France, with temperatures touching 42.9 degrees Celsius on Saturday, while Pissos in South France recorded the daily national high of 43.4 degrees Celsius. Cottbus in Germany recorded a record 39.2 degrees Celsius. Wildfires have broken out in Germany and Spain due to soaring temperatures and high winds. And in France, some cities banned outdoor public events and even cancelled schools. With Nantara Singh, Sakshi Bajaj for NDTV.
And finally, in Himachal's Parvanu, there was a sigh of relief finally for those 11 stranded passengers from that mid-air, stuck mid-air in Himachal. They were rescued finally. As you can see, it had caused a cable car scare that was stuck mid-air in Himachal, and 11 stranded tourists finally rescued after that rescue operations of nearly 4 hours. And that's a wrap from all of us on this bulletin, but stay tuned to NDTV for all the latest.